thank the gentleman for speaking, and I certainly am going to support this bill. All I got to say, here we are with high unemployment, with an economic disaster happening, and yet we are spending time debating a bill which is going to pass by 435 votes. It's a good bill. It's a non-controversial bill. It will pass. It should be voice voted. But why are we spending time to do this when we have millions of unemployed Americans and other people who are on the brink of getting laid off? We have a stimulus bill that the Democrats are very proud about. It's got about an $830 billion price tag at the moment, creates 3.7 million jobs. Now, the Republican alternative is half the cost, twice the jobs. I want to repeat that. Twice the jobs and half the cost. It is a bill that targets small business job creation. It targets Main Street, not Washington, D.C., not Wall Street, but Main Street, so that the jobs could come from the bottom up rather than centralized, bureaucratic, governmental planning here in Washington, which failed in Moscow. It's failed everywhere else that the government thinks they know best. The Democrat bill costs $280,000 per job in a country where the household income on an average is $50,000. 7% of this money goes to public works, roads, bridges, highways, things that actually put people to work with shovel in hand. Only 7% of their money. And the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office has determined that only 22% of the entire bill could be spent this year. So much for urgency. And one interesting provision that now the Senate has rejected is that the E-Verify, the electronic verification language of the House that will make sure that the jobs go to legal American workers, now that might get thrown out. Boy, such a signal to our Americans. The Senate compromise continues the House folly of creating 32 new federal programs. Some of the programs include $29 billion for weatherization, $1.2 billion for the National Science Foundation, $1.3 billion for NASA. Now remember, this is a jobs program. It's not a normal appropriations program. These things the federal government has a hand in. I understand that, but they're not job creation. This bill has $200 billion in undisclosed phantom earmarks, $200 billion, which will be used for earmarks, but it won't be disclosed because the decisions will be made by state and local government. It contains about $8 billion for corporate welfare by saying to telecommunication companies who want to expand broadband, we know you're doing that right now with your own money, but we want to give you the money to do that. In fact, there's even language in there that specifies the speed of which the broadband tax credits will be available, and there's only one company that will be eligible for that. This bill rolls back the 10-year-long welfare reform. It eliminates the back-to-work provision in welfare. And you don't have to necessarily land a job. You have to be searching for the job for if you're able-bodied, and this bill eliminates that. This bill creates a brand new program, $100 million to allow schools to buy new lunchroom equipment. Popcorn, anybody? Smoothies? Don't worry, the federal government will put the machine in the lunchroom near you. And then $100 million for an ag disaster, even though we just passed a permanent agriculture disaster bill in the Farm Bill. This bill still goes out and puts another $100 billion for it. This bill doubles the annual budget for the Department of Energy. It goes from $23 billion to $40 billion. This bill allows a new program which puts the federal government in charge of buying $300 million worth of electric cars like this. Now, I am a strong proponent of alternative energy, and I think that these cars have a purpose, but it doesn't belong in a jobs bill. We do not need that in a jobs bill at this point. The list goes on. This bill has $4 million for a federal high-performance green building agency. This bill actually has language in there to study the private sector profits in the Northern Islands and American Samoa. The gentleman,
I yield it to the gentleman another minute.
The gentleman is recognized for an additional minute.
Why is that money in there? What is the interest of the Speaker with American Samoa and the Northern Mariana Islands? What is that about? Why would that be in a jobs bill? To study private sector profits? There, it makes no sense. You know, our national debt right now is $10.6 trillion. We spend $450 billion each year just paying interest on the debt. That's almost as much of what we pay for the entire Department of Defense. We are letting the generation that's in charge rob from the next generation. That would be our kids. You know, Democrats and Republicans have done a lousy job of controlling spending, and certainly as a Republican, I want to say we have not done the job we should have done. But our worst deficit when we were in charge of Congress was $412 billion. This quarter alone, the Democrats will exceed $1 trillion in deficit spending. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to go back to the table. The Republican bill provides twice the jobs at half the cost.
Gentleman's time's expired.
I yield back.
Gentleman's time's expired.